Tfest is fish out of water in this thing. I actually happen to think there's an enormous interplay, having sat through panels, between what really happens and our escapist version of what really happens. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today. What is the intersection between reality and great, thrilling fiction? So, Douglas, can I start with you? You have put so much thought into both of these media, to an extent, I mean, we all have, but you really have. I'm tempted to ask you the question I wrote down, but before I do, just because you put so much thought into this, would you rather I pose you a question, or would you like to expound for a moment?
Oh, I pose me a question.
Okay, so my question is, it's a bit long-winded. Is reality trumping fiction? And here's what the question says. After all, the biggest selling book of the year is Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand, and as I mentioned earlier, more sensationally, Wiener tweeted his privates and the other things I mentioned. I guess should we all just be writing nonfiction because it's sufficiently thrilling?
Well, you know, that's interesting. I think that if you look at the greatest thrillers, the most successful thrillers, almost all of them are maybe 90% nonfiction. I mean, think about the greatest thrillers written in the last 100 years. You know, I mean, Eye of the Needle is one. We were just talking with Ken Follett. I mean, that book is 80–90% nonfiction. The Hunt for Red October, another amazing thriller. I mean, where does the fiction begin in that book? I mean, a lot of that's nonfiction. So I think that thriller writers have a lot to learn from nonfiction writing, and also from learning how to research and report. I mean, some of the best thriller writers around started as newspaper reporters who could, you know, interview people and get information from them. I think that's an enormous help in writing fiction. In fact, even not just for thrillers, but for a guy like Hemingway or whatever, you know, started out as a newspaper reporter. So yeah, I think the nonfiction is a crucial aspect of writing good thrillers. But, you know, the thing about, I guess maybe I didn't quite answer the question. I'm now expounding. I love expounding.
My God, wrap it up, man.
Okay,
no, I just expound.
But the idea that, you know, most non-fictional stories are stranger than fiction is it's so true, because if I were to have brought the Monster of Florence idea into my publisher as a fiction idea, they would have said that's ridiculous. I mean, no one would ever believe that. And even when the book was published as nonfiction, I had reviewers on Amazon saying, "Oh, come on, this story can't be true. This is bullshit. Are you kidding? Who can believe this stuff? This is not true."
So does that suggest that, I want someone might jump in, I'll just throw it out. Does that suggest that a book is scarier if it hews closer to something we could imagine actually happening? Is that more thrilling for the reader?
You know, I think what is most important is the writing. If you have a tremendous talent and you can characterize somebody or describe a place, have the restraint enough to pull back on the suspense and build it, I don't think you can tell really the difference between fiction and nonfiction. I mean, really it comes down to certainly the story, but the writing.
If I could jump in, I do think that if there's a sense of plausibility in your story, it does make it a lot scarier. In my book, it actually came out of my experience reporting at the White House when President Bush first vetoed the embryonic stem cell bill. And it inspired this idea in which embryonic stem cell research has been fully banned. And I wondered, what would somebody do if they were really sick and needed this research to save their lives? So the fact that I do think that this is a plausible scenario in the near future inspired the book, and I hope will make it a more chilling read for people that recognize this.
You know what would have been awesome is also if there was a serial killer in the White House while that was happening.
I think that the reality often gives us the fiction. My new work is historically based. They're contemporary stories, but very much rooted in history. My new book that's coming out in October opens at the end of the Civil War. And it opens in a meeting between Lee and Grant at Appomattox, where Lee surrendered his army to Grant. And for just a few minutes, this is the reality, for just a few minutes, the two men were alone in the room where the surrender took place together. No one knows what they talked about. Then the staff was allowed in to witness the actual surrender. That was the point where I jumped off and made a story.
And your theory is what is spectacular that happened there that makes it thrilling?
Well,
insofar as you
give away the book. What I created a secret agreement.
Writers are so guarded about giving away the last 2 or 3 pages. I just do not get it.
Or the last 400 pages. Lee and Grant, in my world, made a secret agreement about what would happen if certain things took place in the country after the surrender, after, theoretically, the country became one again. Then jump ahead 150 years, and someone is trying to take what they did in those few minutes and use it today.
Wait, so did they reach an agreement on the debt ceiling? Is that... No.
So I want to pose a question that you raised, but just with a very quick observation about when you start off as a journalist. When I was a cub journalist, I wanted, we're all raised under the era, the specter of Watergate, and so I grew up thinking that maybe there was a conspiracy everywhere. So you'd go to the water board meeting, and you'd go, there's a reason on the north side of town they can't get up to 99 degrees on their water. And very slowly over time, at least my experience has been, there's a rational explanation for almost everything. That parties don't conspire. They might have a wink and a nod for some idea. What I want to ask the panel, and Brad and Kathleen, Kathleen, you did, Brad and Jessica, you have not yet spoken, maybe you can start with this. Do you believe in conspiracies? And how do you define it? Because it seems like the place we have leapt to in thrillers is we go from the happenstance, the unusual circumstance, to weaving something together. And I'm wondering, do you guys believe those webs get woven?
I think it's a matter of time. Like, I believe in conspiracies in the short term. I think they can exist for a little while. I think eventually they always get exposed. I mean, you mentioned Watergate. Okay, who is Deep Throat, right? This was the question that thrilled us all. And any journalist, we spent time on a bar stool going, and you would always snicker at the person who thought it was Diane Sawyer. You're like, come on, honestly, really?
Right, and it turns out to be Diane Sawyer. It's phenomenal.
But eventually, of course, it comes out because it was Mark Felt. And his family wanted to cash in on Grandpa's fame while he was still around. Yeah. And so they trot him out. And I don't know if you remember the photo, but he was like, he was wearing this like little checkered flannel shirt. And you're like, as a journalist, you've been taught that Deep Throat was like superhero, right? Like he was like, we all dreamed of having a Deep Throat meeting us in a garage, giving us the answer, like, and it's like, that's Deep Throat. And it kind of, and he likes martinis. And he kind of totters. So
does that suggest what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I just think they don't last.
You're suggesting that there is.
Eventually, it all comes out.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think there are conspiracy theories that go on forever. Look at JFK.
Theories, yes, but not reality.
No, but they will go on and we love it. We love conspiracy. The whole idea of conspiracy. That's what makes things interesting. That's what gives the intrigue. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that great fairy tale that goes on forever that you want to believe in. You want to believe in those conspiracy theories.
But the way you articulate that suggests that we want to believe in them, but they're not actually real. Yeah. Am I reading you correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I